Water efficiency targets. What water efficiency measures are most appropriate in Westminster? And a question about sustainable urban drainage systems. I mean, we've already had a small discussion on this earlier about this, but does anyone have any further comments to make on SUDs or water efficiency measures as a whole?
Well, I'm rather a fan of what is called living roofs, because it's a way of slowing down the rate of water coming in these sudden events. But there are also other things, the benefits that flow from it in terms of increasing biodiversity in areas that are actually, very concrete, very brick, very tarmac, and so you're actually getting some natural life back in there, and that also helps to support the parks and the wildlife that goes between it. Also, visually, it can look very nice for people who are working in office blocks. It would be nice if you could look out. We're not particularly high up in this building, but often when I'm up on the 17th floor, look down, and I can't see a living roof within any of the windows that I normally look out of, and I would love to see within the lifetime of the LDF that change.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder if one might address the way that the Singapore people have over drainage of the roads, and as they have no fresh water supply, everything is brought in by pipe. They recycle all they can of their rainwater, and might that assist Westminster, particularly with the heavy rains now, and particularly in the areas where there is flooding? And it would stop buses splashing people. It's not only just taxis.
Thank you.
Hi. For the water efficiency measures, the question here is: should for new build, should you go over and above the regulations under Code of Sustainable Homes? My personal opinion on that is no, you shouldn't. I think the Code of Sustainable Homes is very restrictive in terms of water efficiency already, and going above that wouldn't make sense to me. The second part is a behavioural aspect. I work in Westminster. I don't know where my water comes from. That's a question I would like. Beckton. But behavioural aspects are just as important as designing in water efficiency measures.
Okay. And in terms of Code for Sustainable Homes, are you saying that if we did implement at a particular level, say 3 or 4, then that would sufficiently cover water efficiency measures as well?
Yes, if you have to achieve a code level 3, you will have to do a certain minimum amount of water efficiency measures anyway. The question would be, do you ask for code level 4 or 5 quicker? Do you make rainwater harvesting mandatory, for example? I'm not sure if that's a useful thing to do.
Okay.
I wondered if it would be possible to stop people paving over their gardens. Yes. Because where I live, all the front gardens are paved over so they can park their cars, and the back gardens are paved over so they can. And it's very bad with these flood storms.
Did you want to just say about the GDPO?
Thank you. We do actually have, at the moment, policies to restrict front garden parking and creation of hard standings at the front. But recently, last year, the what you can do through permitted development without planning permission, essentially, was changed so that if you wanted to do front garden parking, it had to be permeable surface. So, unfortunately, in many instances we don't have control, but where permission isn't required, they are required in order not to require permission, if that makes sense, that it be permeable. So if, for example, they wanted to do it with concrete, that would require permission, and we'd have some control over that, and those issues would come into play. So in part we are constrained by what the government allows people to do, but generally we do try and resist, where we can, front garden parking.
I just wanted to pick up on the rainwater harvesting point. I think we shouldn't lose track of the fact that we use portable drinking water to flush toilets. And I think, again, in thinking about driving the standards of new buildings and retrofitting old buildings, there is a resource which is rainwater, which can be used for toilet flushing. It can be used for garden irrigation. And we need to change the behaviour and the mindset that says it's acceptable to use portable water to flush a toilet.
Thank you.
Yes. Does Camden Council have a requirement that's interesting for swimming pools and new builds? It says that if you have to achieve a certain amount of water credits under the Code of Sustainable Homes. I don't want to get into the technicalities, but it should be useful. You need to achieve 50% of water credits. So if you have a swimming pool, that effectively means you would have to use a grey water or rainwater harvesting system if you have to achieve 50% of the credits under the water section. That's useful for pools.
Thank you. Councillor behind you. But there's a gentleman at the back.
Just 2 points. First of all, very strongly to support both the problem of gardens. I mean, I can see with the problem of parking, some sort of paving can actually have environmental benefits, but permeable is perfectly simple, and it's not only the quicker runoff. That gives runoff and it goes. If you allow it to sink in, it helps water table, it helps a whole range of things. And I think, never mind Westminster, this was one of the areas I was dealing with when I was a civil servant. Planners simply have not taken any notice of the effect on aquifers, etc., of allowing building hard concrete and non-permeable systems. So I cannot too strongly emphasise the need for that, not just for front gardens, but wherever possible, that one can return the rainwater to its natural source. Secondly, to support my colleague here on not using potable water for totally unnecessary purposes, some parts of France anyway have a twin pipe system, which seems to me absolutely admirable. I quite recognise the cost may be huge, and somebody may well tell me the environmental benefits, or rather the environmental cost of it, are greater than the benefits. Finally, a question. I've never fully understood where the cut-off comes between you and Thames Water on all this. And if anybody can give me a simple four-word answer on that, it's going to be pretty crucial. Thank you.
Any takers? We might get back to you on that one. The gentleman up front.
Yeah, no, I just it's very gratifying to know that permeable surfaces are a requirement, and hopefully they will also be retrofitted wherever possible. It come to my attention that the loosening of the legislation on permitted development can be does not necessarily apply in conservation areas if there is a request for it not to be applied. And it's not just concreting over gardens, it's also about building generally in gardens. And Westminster's, I think it's 70% conservation area, so I think it's worth keeping that in mind as well.
Okay, thank you.
May I mention, while on the subject of water, downwater pipes? I don't know what your standards are, but attached to my Grade 2 listed, they're too small and they overflow. So I don't know if on, was it Roundtree Living Homes at one time one used to discuss, but the downwater pipes need to be large enough to take flood level rain.